Experimental probability. If you look at what happened in the past, you can use that to predict what will happen next time in the future. And that's the basis of experimental probability. The idea is that we can conduct many trials of an experiment to find the experimental probability of an event, the chance that it will happen next time. In a probability experiment, the frequency of an event is how many times it happened. We also have another term called relative frequency. The reason why relative frequency is useful, because suppose that I'm looking at whether it is likely to rain, and I notice that after I conducting my experiment of going outside and looking whether it's raining, I do that lots of times, and the frequency of rain was 40. It happened 40 times. That doesn't tell you much about how likely it is to happen next time, right? If I only looked outside on 42 days, then 40 out of 42 is pretty high probability. I live somewhere really rainy. But if I was doing this for 10 years and I only got 40 days of rain, then clearly it's very unlikely. So instead of the frequency, we can use the relative frequency. When I say relative, I mean that we get the frequency and we divide it by the total number of trials. We'll see an example over here on the side soon on how that works. The relative frequency is also called the experimental probability, so those two terms are interchangeable. Let's make it real. Imagine that you are a meteorologist. You study the weather, and you're studying the rain of Blogtown. You collect data for 140 days, and it rained on 40 of those days, and it was dry on 100 days. The number of trials is the number of times that I ran the experiment. The experiment is going outside and looking if it's raining, in this case. How many times did I run that experiment? 140. I've got 140 results. The possible outcomes here are, well, the sample space has only two outcomes, rain or no rain. The frequency of rain is how many times that happened, and that's 40. It happened 40 times. The frequency of no rain is how many times that outcome happened, 100 times. The relative frequency of rain is the frequency divided by the number of trials. In this case, the frequency is 40, and the number of trials, the total number of trials, is 140. I can put that on my calculator and get it as a decimal. Notice that this was actually 0.2857 something. And the next digit after an 8 was a 5, and on a 5 I round up. So I look at the next digit, which is a 5, that's 5 or bigger, so that 28 turns into 29. All right. We can also say that the probability of rain, this P bracket rain, end bracket, you read that as the probability of rain. In here is the event, and the event is rain. Well, that's the same thing. The experimental probability is the same as the relative frequency. So if I went outside tomorrow, there'd probably be a 29% chance of rain.